Welcome to Your Image with Abeokuta. Your Image is a public relations program aimed at enhancing national unity, growth and development of the nation. And in our own case, Nigeria, we are gathered here once again to look at issues, particularly at this moment when we're reflecting 31 years after June 12. How has Nigeria fared? I have great panelists here. I have a veteran broadcaster, a media manager, a role model, and a man so seasoned in the issues of Nigeria development, media development, and so on and so forth. I have the pleasure in welcoming Eddie. You're welcome, sir.
Good evening, Aki, and hello out there.
It's nice having you. It's been a long time we had you on this set. Thanks for all the support so far.
You're welcome.
I also have Mr. Abeokuta. Mr. Abeokuta is an accountant, insurance broker, and is also a public analyst. You're welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. 31 years ago, the struggle was so rife, was so strong, and people demanding that democracy must be on board. Now we have democracy. Has it edged? The struggle, has it edged?
Well, that's a tall one, because if you look at the circumstances, that led to the contest, by Abiola, the annulment and all that, you realize the fact that what actually made him to contest that election is still around. Like for instance, if you compare the past and now, vis-a-vis Abiola's opinion and what he saw. He said, I traveled throughout the length and breadth of this country, and what I found was very confounding. That there was inflation, there was a huge economic deficit, financial deficit, that there was unemployment, that the youths were moving out of the country, in drones. He said the industries, the factories were left empty. No spare parts, no machinery, and no raw materials. And if you look at it, you have a population that was disillusioned. There was poverty was right, inflation was there, right, selling everybody in the field. And that was the reason why I contested, and I said I was going to undo all that. In other words, I was going to ensure that the economy of the country was better. That was the reason why he named it Hope 93. Now let's take it back to what we have now, 31 years on. Exactly the same thing. The inflation rate, headline inflation rate in the country now is 33.7%. If you look at if you look at food inflation, it's 44.5%. And food inflation leads to headline inflation because of the removal of fuel subsidy. And so, if you look at the level of unemployment in the country, 33%. Virtually everything that made Abiola to contest that election, everything is here now, staring us in the face. The public, just mention it, everything was comatose, and the youths were moving in drones outside the country. So that was the reason why he said he contested. And now everything, all these things I'm talking about, are still back in the country. So look at the past, 31 years on, and look at now. Then something must be wrong somewhere. Tinubu contested and renamed this hope thing that, renewal of renewed hope, 2023. But again, the question is, has that 1 year on, has that hope been renewed? Because this was a man who actually participated effectively, especially in Abeokuta. I was one of those who went through the routes, the Abeokuta route, like Professor Olishoyinka, many of them, just mentioned them, Nauru and all the rest of them, they went through because of persecution. But some people stayed behind. Many of them, who didn't go through that, stayed behind. So the struggle was being fought at that level and at this level, but in the final analysis, he had been the president of the country. The question now is, what has changed? For me, not much has changed, because although some people will say 1 year may not be enough to, judge a particular, head of state or president, but at least from what we are seeing, from what has transpired in the last 1 year, especially Tinubunomics, if you look at the issue of fuel subsidy is gone, and that has percolated down the entire gamut of our national life. You're talking of transportation, you're talking of food, you're talking of even schooling, you're talking of the common man, you're talking of the women, you're talking of youth and all that. You're talking of drugs, the elderly, the pensioners. Actually everybody's crying out loud, that things are not okay. So, but we cannot lose hope about democracy. The fact remains that they are on the saddle now, especially most of them who participated at that time. Maybe tangentially, not all of them will, put their necks into it. I mean, Alfred Rifai, for instance, the man died in the process. So many people, died in the process. Franco Kori and all the rest of them. Yes, even the Paradisaya, he was a man that was shot at. His car was shot at several times and all that. They were there. They stayed the course of it. But one of them is now on the saddle. And back to your question, has anything changed? For me, not much has changed.
Well, if you look at the scenario, it borders so much on the economic development in the nation. And the business environment is something that people are complaining about. Some say it's a mixed bag. To some school of thought, there's a foundational thing that is evolving that's going to put Nigeria on a steady path economically. What's your take?
Well, if I say I want to agree with people that are saying that we've had problems in the past that needs some stabilization before we can get back to our feet, maybe I will say yes. But the fact is this. Yes, many of them have been telling us, many of the politicians have been telling us that we've had problems that we've been covering up for years, that we've been patching up so many things. You hear the likes of Lamido Sanusi telling us that governors back then were spending anyhow. We heard the complaints from Okonjo Iweala. We heard that of...
we were not having what you reserved.
Yes, we were not reserving anything. We were just spending everything. And they told us back then that in 10 years' time, we are likely going to face this kind of issue. But then, the present handlers, what I believe Nigerians are saying is that despite the fact that things have gotten so bad, why can't you lead by example?
What do you mean by that?
Very good. People will tell you that Mr. President will always tell us we have to tighten our belts. I think that is one of the popular sayings during the administration of the immediate past president, President Muhammadu Buhari, that we have to tighten our belts. Now they are telling us that we have to tighten our belts, we have to face the reality. But if you look at the lifestyle of these government functionaries, I don't know what a governor or a president will be doing with more than 10 vehicles in their entourage at a particular point in time. I wouldn't know why 30 governors will be spending almost ₦1 trillion as recurrent expenditure in 3 months. I wouldn't know why we'll be approving $150,000 for a utility vehicle for National Assembly members on the same roads that are not worthy. These are things that people are asking. You have to lead by example. There is famine in the land, there is no food in the land, but you people, it's as if our politicians are still living in that affluence, as if nothing is wrong, as if everything is fine. These are the questions that people are asking. Somebody was telling us on a national TV that an amount has been deposited in some people's accounts to say thank you, when we know that they earn their salary, they earn their pay at the end of the month. Now Labour is talking about minimum wage of 6 figure. Let me just put it that way, because we are yet to have a compromise. But they are saying minimum of 6 figures. That is what they are looking at. And governors are saying they can't even pay 60,000. And when civil servants who are privy to how these public officers spend money, who are privy to how these people get to fund their own excesses, do you still expect Nigerians to clap for the administration that you are doing fine? So these are the things that late MKO Abiola was talking about, that he has seen that there is poverty in the land. He has seen that people are suffering. He has seen that companies are closing down. He has seen that unemployment figure was on the rise. And he said he volunteered to say, I want to come in place and put some things right. 31 years after, things are getting bad and Nigerians are complaining.
Perhaps the problem has to do with the issue of borrowing a leave on the issue of a presidential system of government. And maybe that's why people are advocating for parliamentary system of governance.
From parliamentary system of government, that was in 1963, and it moved on and on, until 1979. I think what we did really was cut and paste vis-a-vis the American Constitution, without looking at the local dynamics, the local sensitivities and local sensibilities, and the average attitude of the Nigerian politician. That one, or American politicians. Yes, America is big, 51 states, and all that. But that notwithstanding, if you look at the attitude of the average American politician, it's different from what we have here. In America, even the president does not have that leeway to spend. But here in Nigeria, it's a different ballgame entirely. Every governor, everything here in Nigeria, every governor, even the ones that are low, that don't generate much, they live the same way. Like for instance, in Nigeria, the governor of Lagos State can be a country of his own. But the governor of Jigawa, Nasarawa, Ekiti, and Zamfara will behave, will take the same money, will take the same paraphernalia of office and all that. Unlike in the US. In the US, it is not like that. In fact, the governor that earns most in America is New York State governor. He earns $225,000 per month. Whereas the governor of Maine earns $70,000. Is what they are able to generate. And that's what people are clamoring for in Nigeria. Let's cut our cut. Let the states cut their clothes according to their clothes according to their size or whatever.
But when we look at the argument of the Labour, they are saying that everything should be generalized. What goes on in Lagos should be what's in Lagos.
And that's the mistake. That's why we borrowed wrongly, cut and paste. I've cited the example of America now, for instance. It depends on how the amount of money you are able to generate, your internal revenue. That's how they place your salary. But here in Nigeria, it's a different ball game entirely. Even governors that are not generating, and because of this lopsidedness in our federal system, going to Abuja every month to collect money, it doesn't make our governors to think outside the box. And that's the reason why it's so sad that we are like this. In the US, whatever you generate, you pay some percentage to the federal government. And that was the system we were using before under the parliamentary system of government. They would generate money on their own. In fact, at that point in time, we didn't have oil. We had granite pyramid, coal and all that, and they were still running it the way it should be run. And to the extent that even when you talk of this minimum wage you are talking about, Chief Obafemi Awolowo in 1954, according to the Awolowo Foundation, the Awolowo started the first first minimum wage, higher minimum wage in this country. He was paying double what the other states were paying. Angola was paying 5 shillings, 6 pence. Whereas in another part of the country, the governor there, at the time the governor, yes, was paying, the premier was paying 2 shillings and 8 pence. It depends, and in terms of development, I would develop, and there was a kind of competition, but we have lost all that. That's the reason why we are where we are.
Can't we retrace ourselves?
For me, that's the best thing to do, but it's very difficult. Because there is this culture, if time permits us, there is this culture amongst our politicians. Most of them who are in politics now, they don't have their own businesses. They are professional politicians. Whereas in America, they have businessmen in politics. So they go back to their business. If all things, after finishing their term. But you see a governor, he will spend 2 terms, he will go back to the Senate, he will spend another 2 terms, he will want to be a minister, and all that. It's not done because they don't have something to fall back on. And that's what we should encourage.
Sorry, before we leave the issue of borrowed policies or cut and paste policies, I don't even want to believe that we did cut and paste perfectly. We cut and paste according to what we feel, not according to what we need. It is according to what we feel. Eddie just told us now that the American system that we claim to have copied from, there are things that the American system is not doing that we are doing, and we'll tell ourselves that we are copying from the American system. There is this thing I've been saying for so long, that why can't we have a democracy that respects our own uniqueness? Now Yobe is not making the same revenue as Lagos State, and the Labour is saying that what civil servants in Yobe, in Lagos are earning must be what will be paid to civil servants in Yobe, without prejudice to any state, without downplaying any state. I'm just using that as an example. It's not going to work. And it wasn't the way that it is being practiced in the US. So we just copy things, we bring the original here, and then we manipulate it to suit our own dictates at that time. Not probably because that is what they do elsewhere.
Is it the institutional framework that is not working effectively, that is allowing these excesses? I believe structures of government, agencies of government are supposed to come up with functional and reasonable decisions to run the government of the nation.
Well, it is, we hide behind one finger of saying the structure is not in place, the structure is not in place. This structure we are talking about, the US structure world, Nigeria has one of the best constitutions, if well implemented. But you and I will get to office and will implement these policies the way it suits us. Our constitution has made provision for virtually every of these things we are talking about. But because some people will get there and will feel that, oh, this particular another thing entirely. So it's not a problem of structure per se. It's a challenge of the people, the leadership and the followers. We have decided to sideline our constitution, and somebody will just wake up from any side of his bed and come on air and say, this is what I want to do.
Let me ask you, why can't they come up with reasonable issues and arguments that can change the dynamics?
Well, maybe we'll get there, but if you look at it from the perspective of education and literacy, what's the percentage of literacy in Nigeria? I mean, 75% of Nigeria is rural, and people who live in rural areas. And you know our attitude to education, especially the elites in the northern part of the country and some parts of other parts of the country too. They use education, they hate people. They don't want to educate their people so that they don't know their rights. So education, literacy and all that, it may be taken as the reasons why we have not been agitating, why we have not been shutting a course for our leaders.
So your answer is to Nigerians?
Then yes. Then two, politicians have weaponized poverty. They've weaponized poverty, so virtually when you throw something to them, they take it. without questioning. And that's the problem. That's part of what we have here in the country. The way out, is to educate Nigerians, even during politics, during elections. You can imagine people taking 1,000 naira, to go and vote for something that will affect your children, even born and unborn. It's because of literacy and poverty. So it's a major problem for now. So efforts must be made, to educate people, to make people literate about their function in a society, civic function, voting pattern and all that, what you should look for in a politician.
Whose responsibility?
You are well. It cuts across. Media has been doing its own part. There's the government side of it, NOA, National Orientation Agency, although the extent to which that one is functioning now is questionable. Then schools must be doing it, doing their bit. CSOs, civil society organizations, they must be doing their part. Then market women, churches, mosques and all that. We must rally around Nigerians, because in other times, they've left us behind. Even if you look at the voting pattern, the voting percentage in this country, it's different from what you have in Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast, about 87 people voted there. South Africa, that had just finished the election. You can imagine what happened in South Africa. South Africa gave a rough result, to their own ANC. ANC has lost its parliamentary, majority for the past that has held since 31 years ago, because of poverty, inequality, and the lack of education and unemployment. They gave it to their ANC. ANC now cannot even form the government. They have to align with people. So it's because they land in a hard way under apartheid system. So we have to learn, here too.
Ask just in few words your advice to the youths and professionals.
Well, my advice would be that another election is coming. We'll say in 3 years' time. But that 3 years' time, preparation has to start now. Let every one of us be ready to be partakers, not onlookers. Enough of us sitting by the sideline and be looking. We have to participate and let the ruling class understand that we are ready to take our land, we are ready to take the administration away from non-performers.
We just had it. Let all be partakers of new Nigeria. Let us come on board. Let us re-engineer ourselves, our demands, our wants. Let us come up and have a genuine democracy in Nigeria. Until we do that, Nigeria will remain the way it is. So I want to thank our role model, a media manager, veteran broadcaster Ediano, for creating time to be here today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And Vayami,
Nice being here.
It's nice having you. Maybe when next we are meeting, you have to track the issues of economic matters. And in fact, Nigeria must grow.
Nigeria must
develop.
Yeah.
Until next week, when we come with another topic, I want to say bye. Thank you for being there always. Bye.